By West Virginia head coach Bob Huggins, student athletes Devin Williams and Juwan Staten. We'll take the first question for the West Virginia student athletes as soon as there is one. If you have a question, please raise your hand. One of our microphone stewards, Alyssa or Lauren, will make their way in your direction. Please state your name and media outlet before your question. And we're looking for question number one. Raise your hand, please. John, do you have one? The center section, John.
For both players or either player, can you just talk about the start of the game when you fell behind? What do you feel like was the key to that particular start of the game?
We'll ask Juwan to take that first, please, then Devin.
They came out with a lot of energy. They shot the ball. I watched a lot of film on them, man. That was probably the best I've seen them shoot the ball all year. They got the ball in the right places. They played great defense on us, which made it hard for us to even set up our defense because, we got to score in order to get in our defense. And they came down the other end, and they shot the ball well.
Devin, same question to you.
I don't know. I guess, for me, I picked up 2 early fouls, and kind of let that frustrate me, and I think that's just a little maturity on my side. I got a little bit more growing up to doing things like that, but, just like Wani said, they had a game plan, and, they went by it and they stuck by it, and, they just had a very balanced night tonight, the whole team. It was a team effort tonight from them, and that's pretty much it right there.
Continuing with questions for the student athletes from West Virginia. There's one on the back left.
Elton Alexander, Plain Dealer. Can you guys talk about the second half? Sometimes the team can come out and get real hot, and you guys just didn't seem to be able to get one to go down for you to kind of get you to exhale. Can you just talk about trying to fight and get that first field goal down? And
We'll ask Juwan to take that first again, followed by Devin, please.
At the end of the day, it's basketball. When you shoot the ball, it either goes in or it doesn't. I can't really explain why shots didn't go in. I can't really, speak for everybody else. It's just a matter of shots not going in.
Devin, please.
I don't know, really, man. It's just tough right now. It's everything was just clicking for them, and the refs, they do their best job. They probably got one of the hardest jobs on the floor, dealing with the coaches, the fans, and the players. So, they just try to call it as even as they could, but, we just never got in the rhythm. It was a lot of, stop balls and, and things like that, so we never got in the rhythm, and it's just hard. They did what they were supposed to do at the end of the day. They did what they were supposed to do, and, you can't stop something that's destined, and, got to get credit when credit due, and, they did what they were supposed to do tonight.
The next question's in the center, all the way to the back.
Guys, I'm just wondering, 2 things. First, can you explain your feelings after this? And second, can you talk about getting shots off? It looked like you guys had a difficult time just getting shots off, period.
Juwan first, please, then Devin.
I think the feeling is kind of self-explanatory. As far as getting shots off, they're the biggest team in the country. No team all year has been able to get easy shots on them. So, they played hard. They protected the rim. They guarded. They just played with a lot of fire, and that's all I can say about that.
Devin, same question.
I don't know. Every team Coach Hugs had is, every person he ever recruited, been a self-made person, had to get it on their own. And for me, I always had to get it on my own and, put the time in myself. I ain't never really been handed nothing. So, this loss for me is, I'm going to take a week off or whatever they give us, and, I'm at it. I'm just going to get right back at it, and that's all I can do. And, I don't know. I can't do nothing about it, but just get in the gym, watch film, and get back at it. You know, it's fuel for me. You know, I got 2 more years under my belt, and I don't know. I'm gonna shoot till my arm fall off.
In the center section, right of the aisle, please remember your name and media outlet, please.
Josh Warneb, National Sports Journalism Center. They looked like they came out on press on you guys, which is something you guys are known for. How did that stop you early, and did you expect that from them?
That's for both student athletes. Juwan first, please, then Devin.
I don't really think it was their press that bothered us. I mean, they got a couple deflections or stops early, maybe a couple possessions, but it wasn't the press that bothered us. You know, we got the ball up the court, so I don't really think that press was a problem. We just didn't really execute. You know, we didn't do the things that we were supposed to do. They made it hard for us to score, and, you know, we didn't play defense like we were supposed to, and that's just the way the game went.
Devin, same question, please.
I think the pace, the tempo, they controlled the tempo and the pace the whole game. And every game we won this year, the reason, you know, we're here right now is, you know, because we always controlled the tempo and the pace. And that's pretty much it. You know, they control, you know, the pace and the tempo of the game. And, you know, the only way we're going to be successful is, you know, us controlling the tempo and the pace. And, you know, they just did a good job of slowing us down and, you know, and things like that.
Final question for the Mountaineer student athletes, all the way on the left side.
This is for both of you. Rob Rossi, Pittsburgh Tribune Review. Juwan, what do you think the program was able to establish this year that will hold up going forward, and what did you see from Devin that makes you confident that he'll be able to sort of step into that leadership role that you might be vacating?
Juwan.
I think we put West Virginia basketball back on the map. You know, Coach Hugs has always had great teams, you know, teams that are, you know, used to being in the NCAA tournament, used to winning games. And, you know, for a while we got away from that, you know. So, you know, just to get back to this spot, you know, to be in the Sweet 16 means that, you know, we got a special thing. You know, we only have a couple seniors graduating. So, you know, the bulk of the team is coming back. And, you know, you could definitely look forward to them being in the tournament for years to come. And as far as Dev, you know, I mean, he definitely, you know, showed his leadership this year. You know, last year he was more quiet, kind of stubborn at times. But, you know, this year he definitely spoke up. You could see that he wanted to help people, always talking, you know, always pointing out things and showing people where they're supposed to be. And you know, he stepped up big. You know, if it wasn't for Dev, and we wouldn't even be sitting here right now. So, you know, I really appreciate him. And I know he's going to do great things next year. And I'm just looking forward to seeing what's to come.
Did you want Devin to answer that also? Okay. We'd like to thank Juwan and Devin for joining us here in the main interview room. They're going to head back to the locker room right now, which is still open, and rejoin their teammates at this time. First question for Coach Huggins, please raise your hand. Let's come all the way up to the front in the center section. Please remember names and media outlets before your questions. Thank you.
Paul Doherty, Cincinnati Enquirer. Bob, can we get your take on what occurred the first 8 minutes of the game?
Well, I think pretty much what I was afraid could happen. They shot the ball really poorly the last game, and they're too good to have probably back-to-back bad days shooting the ball. And they came out and made a bunch of shots. And we, you know, we're trying to scramble around and leave the right guy open. And they were aggressive. They took it to the basket. And we couldn't score, which was my biggest fear, was that we would have a hard time scoring.
If you have a question for Coach Huggins, please raise your hand. Next question for Coach. Center section, left of the aisle, Dan.
Dan Wetzel, Yahoo Sports. Bob, obviously scout them, they're big. Are they even more impressive when they're running at you? Just the size factor, trying to deal with them. How are they? Do they seem bigger on the court than what you were even anticipating?
I don't know. I don't know if they seem bigger, Dan. you watch all the film, and nobody scores around the basket. I think that's the people that have given them a decent game are people who could make enough shots to get them spread, and people who could offensive rebound and either kick it out or be able to finish around them, because you can't finish over them. So I don't know if I wouldn't say they were bigger than I thought they were. They looked awful big on film to me.
Continuing with questions for Coach Huggins. If you have one, please raise your hand. Any further questions for Coach? There's one all the way to the left.
Bob, I'll ask you the same one I asked Juwan. What do you think you guys were able to establish as a program this year, and what do you think you need to further establish to take another step?
Well, we're still. I mean, this team's pretty young. I mean, I think it's a tribute to Wani and Gary and Devin that were really our three veteran guys. I mean, you look down the roster. This is John Holden's first year. This is Dexter Miles' first year. This is Jayshon Page's first year. Javon Carter's first year. Tariq Phillips' first year. Elijah Macon's first year. So, I mean, we've got a lot of young, inexperienced guys that are only going to get better, and I think certainly these 3 games to the tournament are going to make us better. We'll be more seasoned a year from now. We lost some games, early. We lost some games when those 2 guys were out that we didn't want to lose, certainly, but it did give those young guys a, kind of baptism under fire. So there's a lot returning, so well, I don't know what did we establish. I think we're back where we're used to being, where I'm used to being anyway.
Any further questions for Coach? In the middle, John.
Bob, John Clay, Lexington Herald Leader, you said watching them on film and so forth, but was there anything they did tonight that surprised you?
No, not really. We couldn't practice on Monday because we didn't get back till 4 o'clock in the morning. So, I had really all day, and I did nothing all day but watch film. So, and I know John, and John knows me, so I don't know that how we're going to surprise each other, They were what I thought they were. I thought they were the best defensive team in the country. Everybody kind of gets caught up in their size and all that, which is certainly a part of it. But to get those guys to play as hard and to play together the way they do, and I mean, you look down there, you got guys that are going to be lottery picks that they give the ball up, they share the ball, they do. John's done an incredible job. When a lot of what we do is managing people and managing egos and attitudes and all those kind of things, and he's done an absolutely terrific job of managing and getting guys to play together and to care about one another, and they're terrific defensively. That's the best defensive team I think that I've ever coached against. And when they're making shots, and they made shots today, when they make shots, there's nobody going to beat them when they make shots like that.
There was one in the center, Tim.
Tim Warsinski from the Cleveland Plain Dealer. You kind of just answered this, but what would it take to beat Kentucky for any of the teams that are remaining in the tournament?
They're going to have a bad day. They had a good day today, and we had a miserable day. And so we lose by 40. If they have a really bad day shooting the ball, you can pack it back in, and try to keep the score down and close. But when they're making shots, they get you spread. They're too big and too skilled inside, and you got to be able to create some offense and transition or something, because it's really difficult to score against their half court defense. I think Georgia probably did the best job, kind of got them spread, but they still didn't win, and that's probably as well as Georgia's played all year, and probably Cal would say that Kentucky didn't play very well, and they still win. You know, I think that's the difference. I thought going in really that the 2010 team may be more talented, but they weren't near as good defensively. I think they were. You know, I mean, you can't argue with what John Wall and Cousins and Bledsoe and those guys have done in the NBA. They're very, very talented guys, but I don't think that team guarded the way this team guards. I think that's the difference. I think this team is absolutely fantastic defensively. You know, when you got two guards that are 6'6" and as long and as athletic as they are, they just take up so much space. You know, back in Rupp's Runts, the biggest guy was what, about 6'5"? He'd had to be a point guard or he'd never got in now, you know. It's just they're just so big and so long.
In the front left, Matt.
Matt Jones, Kentucky Sports Radio. Some of the Kentucky guys just said that the comments before the game really motivated the team by a couple of your players. Do you wish, in hindsight, they hadn't been made, or does it not matter?
No, you know what? Honestly, I think that's a bunch of BS. I think once you throw the ball up, you play. You know, it was a freshman that said it, and I'm kind of happy he had some confidence. You know, I'm kind of happy he wasn't hiding under a chair somewhere. You know, there's nothing wrong with you know, having some confidence and wanting to go out and compete. They just were way better than we were.
Any further questions for Coach Huggins? Thank you, Coach.
Yep.